Welcome to episode 7 of Poppy of Course Corner. Talking to Huff and Sharon and Tiger will out. If you enjoy it, be great. Are you down?
And like I said in my deal yesterday, growing up in Alaska, I was just natural that you didn't swim with the fight kids, but you go to school with them on Monday through Friday. Okay, you didn't watch the movie theater at the same level the fight kids did, but shopped in the same stores with them. It was very interesting, but also very, very a blessing. So, like I said, being in a small town, I couldn't go home and tell my mom, I don't want to go to that school anymore. I want to transfer to whatever. That was where we had to be. You had to make it work. And so having to make it work is having Christ-like attitude. My wife and I were talking about this today, guys. In my high school, I think my graduating class was 84. The top 4 grades in our school was probably about 500 kids. Okay, this was our 9th through 12th grade. In the 4 years, how many years was I in high school? 5, 6. I don't remember how many years I said. The 4 years that I was in high school, we saw one interracial fight. One interracial fight. And when Tamara and I were talking about that this morning, it's because most of the kids that the black kids that I grew up with in this small town, they had that attitude of, we just have to, Rodney King, we just all have to get along. It wasn't just get along to get along. It was a relational thing on a student or kid level. So it's only so far you can take that. And so it was very interesting. Summer baseball, these kids that you can't swim with, you're on their baseball teams, So to me, it's a generational thing where we have got to start every day trying to change, because Sharon's kids don't want what we're trying to pass on to them. Tyrell does not want that. They are sick and tired of the rest of the world seeing this now, and enough is enough. Again, decision has to be made. We have got to point to the policy book that works. It's Almighty God. It's His word. And we have to instill it in our hearts. We have to commit to it. And when the going gets tough, then let's get going, because we don't want to back off, etc. Now we can point out all kind of instances where we can say, well, he shouldn't have, and whatever. At the end of the day, think about what's going on in our world, and like Dad taught you, Sharon, look at what they did to Jesus Christ. If you want to emulate him, you spiritually have to die to yourself every day. It means that you can express His mercy, so you deal with it. You have to. So that's I saw Herbert Cooper, who's minister at People's Church, with the governor yesterday, and I didn't see it all. I want to look at it, but he kept talking about how we got to get together and talk. And I was a little disappointed, because he, as a minister, I thought he should have said, we've got to got to read, we've got to know, we live it every day in our lives. And you can start now. It's rough for us old people, but it's not hard for younger people. You can teach an old dog new tricks. It takes a longer. So let me share with you one other thing in this book. Some of them were funny, but in the book, Black is, and Sharon, when you said what your kids being mixed, Black is, and this is in 1972, guys, 1972. My wife gave me this. She said to her from Tamara Newton, so we wasn't even married, July 25th, 1972. And one of them is, Black is fighting on both sides of the Civil War and losing anyway. Like Sharon said, her kids are getting it from both sides. My kids have to maybe be aware of both sides of the what's going on in the world. And Black is when you'd rather, this is 1972, Black is when you'd rather face the Viet Cong than the friendly cop in your own neighborhood. Yeah. This was 1972, and we're still talking about this today. So you can get overwhelmed with this stuff. White is being totally committed to Black power until they start demanding Black power. Yeah, and here's another one. White is allowing your blacks to fight for their freedom. White is allowing blacks to fight for their freedom in Vietnam. This stuff is so, I mean, it just, if, and I don't go there too much because it hurts. It really does. It hurts when you, 48 years ago, and it's kind of still there. So what that says to me, guys, is that, yes, Sharon, we've made progress. It certainly is a whole lot better than it did. In 1972, I could name black political leaders or politicians on one hand. I can't name, that are in federal government, state governments, and things like that. But we still need to keep our foot on the gas pedal. Mm-hmm. Can't downshift and say we're there. So, okay, I'm done. I'm sorry I talked too much.
So I going, I guess, two things. Okay, so I was at a protest Saturday in Edmond, and like you said, there was so many white people, and it was very encouraging to me. I remember, so the organizers of this protest, they were friends of Isaiah Lewis, who was shot and killed by 2 Edmond cops last year while he was naked and unarmed, had nothing but his socks on. And his friends put together this protest. Well, at one point, we were at the police station, and the guy who put it together, he told all people of color, stand on the police steps, said, we're fighting for y'all. So we all get on the police steps. And, there's different people, we're handing the megaphone off for different people to just share their feelings, share how they're feeling, share their thoughts. And then, he goes, hey, I want everyone to talk. He's like, I see tons of white people out here. And he's like, you're here for a reason. He's like, we want to hear from you. Don't be shy. And it brought me to tears a lot. I probably cried more than I was chanting anything at this protest, because it just kind of put things in perspective. Like, I never thought that we would be here. Yeah, it sucks of what is going on and what's causing us to have to do this. But seeing people stand up on the same side, standing up on the same side was just it was overwhelming for me. And because I've never seen it, you think I was born in 93, it's 2020. You think at some point maybe, but I've never seen it. And to actually see that with my own eyes, I saw, and don't get me wrong, I saw protests on TV. I saw cops with, walking with protests. Like, I've seen all of that, but to actually experience it and be there, and there was white people up there on the megaphone, and they're just standing up for us, saying, hey, we need to be fighting just as hard as they're fighting, because honestly they're tired of fighting. They've been fighting this battle way too long. And there was one lady, and she got up there and she started talking, and she goes, I've lived a pretty normal life. She's a white lady, and she was like, I've lived a pretty normal life, and I didn't realize that there was really any injustice because I didn't experience any of it. She goes, I didn't experience any of it until I married someone who wasn't white, until I had kids who weren't white. And then she starts crying, and she goes, I went to pick up my daughter from daycare, and she's like, they weren't calling her by her name. They were calling her by the color of her skin. And she starts crying. This baby's probably like 1 or 2 years old. And that's just not right. And I don't understand how something like that can happen. And so she was up there, and she's like, I'm going to fight so I can make sure that my daughter can walk out the door when she gets older, and I'm not scared that she's not going to come back. Or when, she said her husband was doing Postmates the other day and he got stopped because, they said he was suspicious, wasn't supposed to be in that neighborhood. And he's like, I'm doing Postmates. Like, I'm just trying to, make ends meet during a pandemic, And it broke my heart because there are white people experiencing this because of, they married a Black person, they have mixed kids and just things like that. And it was so, I guess, enlightening to me, because I think, those are the conversations that need to happen and that people need to see in order to realize, hey, there is really a true injustice happening here. All 50 states held at least some form of protest. There are other countries. Countries that don't even like us, like out here protesting. And, you're like, man, like that must mean that, one, we're really messed up. The other countries have to fight on our behalf too. And two, like we're coming together. People are in London, the UK, everywhere, all over the place, holding, justice for George Floyd signs, Black Lives Matter, and all of these things. And it is just really, really, that's where I'm trying to put my joy, because if I choose to think about, man, I really hated, like, when I was playing basketball and I got called the N-word a lot. I hated that. I can sit there and dwell on that. I can sit there and be so sad and just think about all the things I experienced growing up. But I don't want to be. I want to look at the positive and look at the change that is happening. This is real change. This is real change happening, and we're living through it. I don't and I can't wait to see what the 2020 page in the history book is going to be like. But I hope that it is some sort of change and something that we move forward, that we out once this pandemic is over, things like that, and that we come out of this better. And I've been praying so hard for that, because I don't want any of this to be all for naught. I don't want all of these protests. I don't want, all of these people standing up, people have the highest platform speaking out. I don't want that to all be all for naught. I want change, real change, to happen. I really, I have to look at the good things. Otherwise I can get so sad about this. I can get so beaten down, and it has been exhausting. I'm not going to lie. I'm human. I'm tired of having the same conversation with people, but I love people enough that I'm willing to keep having that conversation. I'm willing to keep talking to people. And I'm never going to dismiss someone who comes up to me and is like, hey, can you explain to me a little bit what you're feeling? A little bit, like, why this means so much to you, because I truly don't understand. I'll always have that conversation, because that's change. I have people texting me, what can I do? What can I do? I said, just stand up. I was like, this battle isn't won alone. It's not won by one person. It's won by everybody. We all stand up. And it's just been really eye-opening. And I probably have everybody I've run into, I probably told them that I've been at the protest, because I learned a lot personally. I learned so much. And I told that to someone. They said, you learned? What do you need to learn? I was like, I'm not this expert on, Black lives and, the cause. I can talk about it and I know some things, but I'm no expert. I don't know how some white people feel about certain things. I don't know all of that. So hearing those different perspectives, even there's Native Americans getting on the megaphone, you know, just I was so unaware, I guess, of how they felt, but it was good for me to know that they felt just as passionate about this as I did. And that's all I can ask for, and that's all I want. Because I want this battle to be fought by everyone. I don't want it to be a black versus white, whatever. I want it to just be everybody, us as Christians, you know, all fighting together for justice, being in the hands and feet of Jesus. That's through all of this, like, I have to be that. I have to be that. Otherwise, people aren't going to listen. Think about it. The best conversations you had with parents, your own parents, were not the conversations where you're screaming and shouting at each other. It's when y'all are sitting down at the table and it's like, hey, it's like, Sharon, I didn't appreciate, you know, what you did at school today, but like, I love you and I want to talk about it, and like, let's get through this. You know, that's how I want everything to be moving forward. I want to sit down. I want to sit down with people who may not even disagree, may not even think that this is an issue. And I just want to sit down and be like, hey, brother, I love you. Hey, sister, I love you. And whether that feeling's reciprocated, I'm loving you because Jesus told me to, period. Whether you're black, white, Hispanic, whatever it may be, I'm always going to show love. And that is the ministry of Jesus. And I cannot go away from that. I cannot, not one bit. That's why I choose not to hold any hate in my heart. I can't. It's too much. It makes me too sad. I can't hate people. I've been wronged so many times by family members and just so many different people who I've trusted. But I look back and I'm like, I can't hate them because Jesus said hate them. And what gives me the authority to hate them? You know, Jesus doesn't hate the guy that killed George Floyd. So why? I shouldn't. So are we truly being Jesus? Like, through all of this, I just want everyone to look at themselves and like, are we being Jesus? No matter your stance, your political stance, whatever it may be, as a church, are we being Jesus? Are we fighting, you know, the battle as if Jesus was here? You know, would Jesus approve of what we say to our neighbor? Would Jesus approve of that comment on Facebook? Would Jesus approve of how you talk about someone when they're not around? That is how I want to be, and I want to move forward in that way. And I want the church to move forward in that way. I want us to just look at ourselves and say, are we being Jesus? Are we holding up our end of the deal? Are we doing everything we can to fight for those who can't fight for themselves? Oh.
Corey, I want to make a couple more comments about the progress, things that I see that, to Sharon's point, there has been change. And it is, my wife and I have started almost documenting television shows or television commercials for it's interracial. I mean, you see commercial after commercial, et cetera, that are interracial couples. That didn't happen 15, 20 years ago. It happened. So we come, progress. I mean, a black person kissing a white person TV show or something like that, it was like, they're going to burn down that television station back whenever. So there's a lot of progress and I don't mean progress of what it comes to is equality and people seeing as human beings. There's been progress progress is we're all just people, okay? I watched a show last night, goodness gracious, I wish I could remember, it was on Positive TV, but it was about these guys. Robert Duvall had a black brother, half black, and he didn't know it. But anyhow, the story.
James Earl Jones?
James Earl Jones, yes. Yes. Have you seen it? It was on last night, and Tamara and I watched it, and I said, "Boy, what great timing!" But what it showed in that movie was that both of them had angst against one another. James Earl Jones talked about a scar that his little half-white brother had, that he hit him in the head with a rock. It was little because he hated his white father, which was James Earl Jones's father. But the story's about how they sat and they, some of what they had to do was wrestle with them. Some of what they had to do was just sit and talk. But they ended up loving each other in the end. And the caveat in this was his auntie who raised them, that every time they tried to say something, she had a saying that just put it back down to earth. Why are you guys saying all that? And I can't remember it now, but to me, talk about protest, the way this lady protested was through her life. We can stand out with the signs and Black Lives Matter and that type of thing, and I'm all for that. Okay, we've done that. Now what? So what? Now what? What do we do now? We've had all these meetings. We've had all these protests. I've got to go back to my community. And what kind of change am I going to effectuate because of what I just did? I have never been a part of a protest in my life. I tried to protest by living the way I need to live, trying to be like the Good Samaritan. When you see somebody in a ditch, go help them, whether you're in Northwest Oklahoma City or wherever. And I'm not saying I do that. What I'm saying is, for me, protest is to live the way Jesus lives, and so that will be against anything else that's going on wrong.
Coming up tomorrow night on the final part of our interview.
Some work to do. The point is this, folks, and I don't mean to diminish protests or anything like that, but now what? Now what are we going to do? We're all having this conversation today. Okay, what's our marching orders?
So I just hope that we get to have open conversation moving forward, and then the conversations become normal to where they're not even awkward anymore.
Because you can't control them. You can control you. And in that same time when you're like, yeah, they need to treat me fairly and treat my kids fairly, but then I get mad at the lady at the fast food restaurant who didn't get my order right. Like, when you say be like Jesus, it's not be like Jesus in the area where it applies to you. It's be like Jesus.
Thanks, guys. We'll see you next time on Part 2 of Coach Corner. Bye. And I think it's back. Welcome, everyone. Crowd.